Hello everybody, I am Boofire 191. Antifa. The anti-fascists, as they call themselves, communists others claim. I prefer to call them cunts. My first exposure to this group was during President Trump's inauguration. They were the ones who sucker punched Richard Spencer. Since then, these pieces of shit have done nothing but pollute the political landscape with threats, intimidation, and violence. Let's not mince words. Antifa are radical left-wing extremists, terrorists if you live in New Jersey. This becomes evident when you look at the rhetoric these LARPers push. They claim that Donald Trump and all those who oppose them politically are racist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi fascists who must be stopped at all costs. They started a riot at Berkeley when Milo Yiannopoulos tried to give a talk at the university. They are responsible for the riots and violence in Hamburg during the G20 summit. They're responsible for starting another riot in Berkeley during their attempt to counter-protest the free speech rally. However, this time around, right-wing extremists fought back, leading to a shit show that makes me weep for the future of political discourse in America. During this riot, there was one incident where a young man who was there for the free speech rally, a guy who wasn't doing anything but handing out Pepsis to stop the violence, was attacked by one of the members of the Black Bloc with a bike lock. It was discovered that the individual who assaulted this man was Eric Clanton. He was a professor of philosophy at Diablo Valley College. People who join Antifa, like Clanton, tend to buy into the ideas of the progressive left. Patriarchy, privilege, all that fun stuff. I don't agree with these ideas. If you do, that's all well and fine, so long as you don't resort to violence or ruin the lives of those who disagree with you. I just want to do a brief overview of what these people are. They are violent extremists, because I want to thoroughly debunk a notion these pieces of shit have. I can't find it again, but I've seen people who support this group, who are a part of this group, people who really hate Trump and anything right of left, claim that if you ever wanted to be a part of Dumbledore's army, or the Rebel Alliance, that you should join us as we fight the tyrannical fascist empire. It's no secret that I love Star Wars. Just, look at my channel. And it's no secret that I overanalyze the ever-living crap out of Star Wars. And I've made it no secret where I stand politically. These idiots are not the Rebel Alliance. These idiots have no idea what the Rebel Alliance truly was. Let's take a quick look at the climate in which the Rebel Alliance was formed. The Empire is your classical, quintessential evil empire. Slavery is rampant, genocide is common, the people must adhere to strict authoritarian laws, and all those who protest or voice their displeasure are killed. The infancy of the Rebel Alliance began with the delegation of 2000, a group of senators who were worried about the Chancellor's growing power. A group of senators like Padme, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma kept trying to find compromise and peace during the Clone Wars. When the Empire was formed and laws became more despotic, peaceful protests began to break out. However, imperial governors would crack down on these people with vicious violence. On the planet of Gorman, Tarkin landed a ship on top of several protesters who were upset about the incredibly high taxation. Seeing the rampant violence by the hands of the Empire, the delegation of 2000 slowly started to organize what would later become the Rebel Alliance. The police within the US do have their issues, but if there is one thing you can't say about the police during protests where Antifa is involved, is that they are being violent or using excessive force. During the Berkeley riots, they were ordered to stand down and do nothing. And when they actually do something, it is when the protesters start to riot or commit violence. There might be isolated incidents of them doing something awful, sure, but on the whole, they've been pretty tame. So with that in mind, let's examine what led to the rebellion forming. The Empire introduced tyrannical laws that brought back barbaric practices like slavery. They also instituted mass executions and genocide of those who spoke out against the Empire, thus completely destroying the ability to peacefully protest. Those who would go on to form the rebellion did everything they could do peacefully first, until every other option but violence was closed off. The government was actively keeping them down and killed those who spoke out. This is not happening in America. Say what you will about Trump, but this is not happening. Protests may be getting dispersed or ended forcefully, considering Berkeley and Hamburg, I can understand why, but people aren't being wholesale executed for protesting or speaking out against Trump. That is not happening. Oh, but Boofire! It can happen! No, it can't, stupid. Not without violating the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States. Not without making an enemy of Congress, the Supreme Court, and the American people. Trump does not and will never have enough power to do anything such as that if he wanted to. Hell, he couldn't do his travel ban thing without Congress as well as the media creating a ruckus that dragged this issue on for months, despite the fact Obama did the same thing during his presidency. That issue unto itself is irrelevant for this video. All I wanted to do was point out how difficult it is for him to do something shitty that may have decent reasoning, in order to explain that him trying to kill hundreds, if not thousands, of US citizens who disagree with him or protest his policies would be fucking impossible. Trump may be the God Emperor, but he isn't a fucking emperor. He can't do whatever he wants, period. Palpatine could. He was the heart, soul, and reason for being for the Galactic Empire. The rebellion had no choice but to fight back. Antifa has a choice, and they've chosen violence. Another attribute that stands out is the fact that the Rebel Alliance is exactly that, an alliance. The rebellion is not made up of people who all believe the same thing. They have similar goals, to be sure, but they are not of one mind. They are a collection of many different people, beliefs, and ideologies. Considering the fact that Antifa will call damn near anyone who disagrees with them a Nazi, as witnessed with Berkeley, twice, I think it's safe to say that this does not apply to them. Ignoring the fact that the Rebel Alliance fought to restore democracy to the galaxy, while Antifa wants to tear down the establishment to create a communist utopia, because that's worked so well in the past, let's talk about what led to the rise of the Empire. The Clone Wars was the event that led to Palpatine gaining so much control over the Republic that he was able to turn it into an empire. The catalyst for this war was several systems who felt disenfranchised with the Republic. Systems who felt the Republic was corrupt decided to leave and create their own galactic government. One thing led to another, the plot of Episode 2 in a nutshell, that resulted in the Republic and Separatists going to war. For this next segment, I'm going to use the broadest and least specific definitions for conservative and liberal. That being, conservatives don't like or are slow to change, while liberals want change. The faster, the better. You guys got that? Alright, cool. Moving on. When breaking down the conflict to its simplest parts, the Republic is made up of systems who don't want to institute any radical change. Why break what has worked for thousands of years? Those who now make up the Republic are more conservative than they are liberal. So in turn, the Republic on the whole is conservative. The Separatists, on the other hand, are made up of systems who don't believe the Republic will change. They want to start again their own way. The planets that left want immediate change. They are more liberal than they are conservative. So in turn, the Separatists are liberal. To make one thing clear before I move on, I understand the Separatists were made more or less as simple villains for a long time. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to look into what they did specifically in story. Liberals aren't evil. Instead, I just want to illustrate that within the wider context of the Clone Wars, the Republic and Separatists represent two very different ideologies. Prior to the war breaking out, senators like Padme, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma attempted to find a compromise between the Republic and Separatists. They didn't want the Separatists to leave, nor did they want the Republic to create an army and go to war. These individuals fought for peace, while other senators were beating the drums of war. We don't know much about the Separatists at this time, but with people like the Bontaries, we get the idea that there were some who didn't want war with the Republic. They wanted to find a peaceful compromise. However, this was undercut as leading Separatist officials like the Trade Federation and Techno Union prepared as well as argued for war. Those who argued for peace were silenced, as those who wanted war, who wanted violence, won out. This in turn led to the Clone Wars, where billions died, rights were trampled on, and the Empire rose to power. This conflict created a power vacuum that destabilized the galaxy and killed countless people who were caught in the crossfire. Let's take a step back for a moment from Star Wars and talk about Italy and the Years of Lead. This was a period of political turmoil that took place between 1968 and 1982. During this time, there was several protests by Marxist student groups, and in the 1970s, the creation of the Red Brigades occurred. A group of communist terrorists who started off small with riots and other acts of vandalism, but later on turned to assassinations and bombings of those they believed were their opponents. These opponents were cops, right-wing politicians, teachers, journalists, and a wide range of other enemies to their cause. They even kidnapped and murdered the Prime Minister of Italy. However, as left-wing and other communist radicals attacked those who were on the right, the Italian Fascist Party, which had fallen out of favor, started to gain some popularity. People were pissed off and tired of the violence, to put it lightly. Over time, this led to the creation of a radical fascist terror group known as the Movement for the New Political Order. They tried to come across as the Red Brigade's opposition, but quickly became just as bad as them, as they started bombing and killing civilians. As communist terror hit its stride, the fascist terrorists attempted a coup to take control of the government. They failed. As the violence continued and the political situation in Italy got more and more unstable, the people became disgusted with these violent terrorists, and over time, the violence ended. Back prior to this, during Mussolini's rise to power, his black shirts were locked in conflict with communist extremists. Their conflict led to the collapse of the Italian monarchy and Mussolini's rise to power. First off, thank you to censored for your video on the subject about the years of lead. It isn't something that's taught in American schools, and I wasn't aware of it, so you gave me something to look into. But secondly, I wanted to talk about the years of lead, because we are starting to see similar trends happen now. Antifa started out with acts of vandalism, but has moved on to assaults, and they're arming themselves. However, what is more troubling is the aptly named Battle of Berkeley. Antifa is no stranger to violence. But what is disturbing is people like this. From what I understand, this man is a straight-up white nationalist, which is, again, troubling. Violence on both sides broke out at Berkeley, and despite there not being a real right-wing equivalent to Antifa, yet, or as far as I'm aware, one would be pretty arrogant to look at history and say that will never happen. If their violence continues, an organized right-wing extremist group will appear, and they will do the same shit as these people. We've already seen this with the alt-right and SJWs. Many on the alt-right have become nothing more than identity politic mouthpieces for white people. Right now, Antifa is committing violence when peace is still an option. The amount of doublethink these people have is mind-numbing. They resist perceived violence with literal violence. These people are unable or unwilling to talk to the other side. They are unable to see another point of view as valid. They won't find any compromise or common ground with their opposition. This is because Antifa knows they can't operate under a democratic system. They know their authoritarian and fascist bullying would never work if they played by the rules of democracy. It would never work if they followed the will of the people. The separatists were left-wing extremists who immediately resorted to violence and would never compromise with their opposition. The Republic were right-wing extremists who immediately resorted to violence and would never compromise with the opposition. The destruction and death they left in their wake led to the rise of the empire and the death of all political discourse and debate. Antifa, you're not the Rebel Alliance. Peaceful debate and protest is still open to you. You've just chosen to willfully ignore it. What you are is a group of dumb motherfuckers who, if given the chance, will destroy political discourse and debate in order to destabilize the country so you can push your narrative and agenda because you know you can't win in a system that relies upon the will of the people. You guys are the separatists, those who hurt and you'll eventually kill countless innocent people you view as the enemy. You will not talk to others with different opinions because they are evil or Nazis or white supremacists. To you, these people aren't people. If Antifa is left unchallenged by the populace, if the media continues to ignore, downplay, or straight up condone their actions, their violence will continue. If the populace doesn't take a stand against these people, like the Italians eventually did during the years of lead, their violence will continue. If celebrities or those in public places, those who have weight behind their words, continue to shout and spout the same rhetoric as these people, their violence will continue. If their violence continues, either the government or right-wing extremist groups will take matters into their own hands. They will meet violence with violence when peace is still possible, like we've seen before with Mussolini. If the people do nothing, then the democracy so many people have sacrificed for will fall apart, and a new authoritarian regime, whatever its politics, will take its place. The option to peacefully disagree will be gone. Debate will be gone. The option for peaceful change will be gone, leaving violence the only way for a democracy to return. The only option would be the rebellion. With that said, there are people who truly do represent the Rebel Alliance. It's the people who've been preaching peace, those who've been asking for an open dialogue, those who, at the very least, see the other side as people, despite all of their disagreements. These are the people who work within the system of democracy. These are the people who know the quality of their ideas can and do win people over. They understand that when the marketplace of ideas is open, they will always beat people like Antifa. For them, violence is an absolute last resort. When their life and the lives of those they care about is on the line, they will only resort to violence when you've pushed them too far with actual violence.